Welcome everyone, Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you. Great topic today, a lot of misunderstanding on this one, but we're going to dig into it. I want to answer the question, do aromatase inhibitors crush your gains? But before we get into that, just a huge shout out and thank you to every single last one of you. I appreciate you so much, I can't even put it into words. The likes, the support, the subs, thank you so much to everybody for your loyalty. If you haven't yet, please share, subscribe, like. It goes a million miles to help rebuild the channel, and I just truly cannot thank you enough. So please, 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 if you can, help me out in those areas. Now, let's talk about this because this one is one of the biggest topics out there that just has a terrible cloud over it and a lot of misconception and misunderstanding, and it's almost like, it reminds me of like politics almost, where it's like one side believes so strongly on one and the other is the complete opposite, and there's these arguments and these hateful things said and da-da-da-da-da. It's like a whole new set of politics. Let's really look at this question and answer it honestly, okay? Do aromatase inhibitors crush gains when using steroids? Can they? Absolutely. Do they? If they are used properly? Absolutely not. Do people have this happen a lot? Absolutely. Why do people have this happen a lot? Because they misuse it. Let's start at the top. What's the number one problem before we even get going with the cycle? People not doing pre-cycle blood work. What's the second one? People not knowing how much or how not much estrogen prone they may be. Number 3, not understanding the compounds you're using. Number 4, probably using too much of the compounds that they're using. Or number 5, over or underestimating their basic, like I said, and this ties into the other one, their sensitivity or lack thereof, or misunderstanding the aromatase inhibitors they're using. So, an aromatase inhibitor is very important when you're running compounds that convert to estrogen or have, can have some estrogenic side effects to that extent, aside from something like anadrol, where an aromatase inhibitor doesn't help because it's not actually converting to estrogen, but that's a whole nother topic. So we've got different aromatase inhibitors, and I'm going to probably do a video that discusses this. I'm not going to get into that in this one, but essentially the two that you're going to see most commonly used are aromasin and arimidex. Well, aromasin is a suicide inhibitor, so it's for some a lot stronger than arimidex, where arimidex is kind of mitigating more so than actually killing off estrogen. Regardless, they're both aromatase inhibitors. And then there's letrozole, which should only be used in emergency circumstances and situations, and that's one of the reasons people have their gains crushed, because they're using letrozole on cycle as an aromatase inhibitor when it is way too strong and completely just out of touch to be using that when it's not necessary. So, like I said, the first issue is not understanding if you are estrogen prone or not. So, for instance, me, I know I'm extremely estrogen prone. I know my body. I know that you've got to get blood work pre-cycle, and then you've got to get it mid-cycle so that you have your baseline, and then you can see, for instance, let's say that I'm running testosterone and D-bol, which we know both convert to estrogen, D-bol at an extremely high rate. You're going to really know running these two together if you're like extremely estrogen prone, mildly or pretty good amount. I don't care who you are, 98 to 99% of the people, even with an aromatase inhibitor, are going to notice some water retention and an increase in estrogen levels with something like D-bol, unless they're running a very, 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 very moderate dose. But like, let's say you're running a general dose of aromasin, 12.5 milligrams every other day, and let's say moderate doses of test, 300 to 350, and like 30 milligrams of D-bol. You're probably going to have a pretty good rate of estrogen conversion there for most. Not everybody, but most. But some people, that would destroy me. I'm extremely estrogen prone. I'd have to take aromasin every single day. And it would take me a while to get that dialed in and understand it and learn it. So there are chances. Most of the time, people are going to probably run too little of their AI. But sometimes people will find that and I have a couple people that are extremely experienced users that literally you would despise because they can run like 750 milligrams of tests and never have one increase in estrogen. Now, these people are few and far between, but they're out there because we're all different. So our body responses are different. So you've got to learn your body response first before you just start throwing around. See, that's why when people ask me and you see me lay out cycles, I used to do this wrong, admittedly, where I would just give random aromatase inhibitor doses that are standard, but I never put, like I do now in parentheses, as just as needed per you. And then I'll explain why, right? So I'll give you a standard dose, but I'm not saying that that's the end-all, be-all, because this is all trial and error. And you know what? I can sit here and every guru and person of high knowledge, even guys that I respect to the end of the earth, we can all sit here and act like we know everything. And we may know all the sciences and what should and shouldn't be, but that does not apply to everybody. Every single person is different. So we might hit 70 to 80%, which is pretty damn good, but there's always going to be 20, 30% of the people that are anomalies, have different responses, minimum. So this is not foolproof. Understand that. But when you run too much of an aromatase inhibitor, you will crush your gains. Absolutely, because you will crush your estrogen, which we need. So yeah, they can absolutely crush gains. And then if you use too little and you start getting high estrogen, that's going to be a whole nother issue. So that, I guess, could crush your gains too. So they could cause that by you, but that's more so on you by not using enough. But if you misuse, misunderstand, misrepresent, yes, absolutely, they can be a terrible enemy. And you don't want to abuse aromatase inhibitors because there's longer term side effects there that could be present too. You don't want to do that. These aren't meant to be ran like that and abused and misused. No ancillary is, because ideally that's not even their main function or what they're supposed to be doing. So you don't want to misuse these. You don't want to use them if you absolutely don't have to, but you should always have them on hand at the minimum, so that if you do have a problem or something, let's say you got overdosed or underdosed gear or bad quality this or that, you should always have something on hand. And you don't know if your body's going to have some out of the ordinary messed up response that you should never have. I can't predict that. You should always be prepared and have these things on hand, but understand that if you misuse these, don't understand them, abuse, overuse, or underuse, they will ruin your gains and could probably cause you other problems. But if they're used properly, they will protect you and serve a multitude of benefits. Like aromasin can increase IGF levels to a high extent as well. But these have to be used properly and understood. And that is the cause of the problem. That and the lack of knowledge and understanding. That people don't really read about them or learn about them or know their profiles, their makeups, and learn the insides and outs of them. You got to do things like that. You have to. Education's everything in this field. And it is in life. I mean, in general, you either know shit or you don't. You know, it's best to be a well-rounded individual, and when you do something, you try to learn everything about it. Otherwise, there's going to be holes there. There's going to be things you miss, whatever. So just keep that in mind. There's a right way and a wrong way to use this, just like anything else. And if you use it right, it can be a benefit. And if you misuse it, it can really hurt you. So there you go. That being said, stay tuned for plenty more to come. Dylan Gemelli, signing off.